housing certainly is one of those sort of fundamental rights that people don't, I think, even think about.
Knowing at the end of the day that I have a key that opens the door to a place that's mine, and that there are people out there who don't have that, really gives us pause.
It is an anchor for a family or for even individuals, and you have to have something that you can tie to, refer to as you move along in life.
When you're dealing with homeless families and people, housing is everything, obviously.
I lived in numerous shelters. I lived in a battered women's shelter. I was going through domestic violence.
In Urbana-Champaign, I experienced what's called a psychotic episode. I started having delusions or illusions of grandeur. I spent every penny that I had on my credit card.
I was under bridges and on top of houses, but at the time I didn't realize I had a mental illness. I just thought, I just can't keep a job for some reason.
Not all family members and friends are safe places. There's a lot of tension, a lot of violence that the families have experienced and had to kind of suffer through because it was a place to stay and it was the alternative to being on the streets with their kids.
He would fight me in front of my kids. He wouldn't care who around.
The definition of homelessness in a rural area like Southern Illinois has always been different than the urban definition, and it's really hard. It's been hard to get funding because you can't see homeless people down here. They're staying in a relative's house, or they're in a garage, or we've had people in storage buildings.
I just was in this rural setting that made me feel terribly isolated and claustrophobic and enclosed within myself. And that's not a good place to be psychologically or emotionally for a person who's been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So I started contemplating suicide.
A lot of people, didn't understand their mental illness. They were on the streets, they were homeless, they were living out of their cars, they didn't understand what was going on with them, they were unmedicated.
I stayed in my car, and it just started making me realize, you know what, you need to change your life somehow. You need to figure out what's going on.
I was employed by Massac County Mental Health for about 30 years, and the recurrent theme kept coming up of once a client is hospitalized and they're discharged, what do we do with them? That was a real problem for us.
Helping someone find housing first, and then helping them address the issues that may have led to some of their instability is really the critical first step.
Having a clean and decent, safe place to live is the only way you can get people out of survival mode.
Supportive housing, I think, is a very critical model in that it's permanent housing and it provides the whole range of services that a resident in that housing environment might need. So it could be providing access and help getting into an education, getting a job, if there's need for substance abuse treatment, getting people that service, if there's need for mental health treatment, getting them counseling or access to psychiatrists for any mental illness drugs that may be needed to help. If it's getting access to other public services like Medicaid, seeing a doctor. It really is meeting a resident wherever they are and moving them up the ladder so that they can become self-sufficient, independent members of society.
So it's just all kinds of services, just about anything you can think of.
Supportive housing to me means support.
No, I know that you're trying to focus your attention on the GED. And
Laura comes over and we talk about looking for jobs, what goals I have reached, where I was at and where I'm headed to.
We're providing the rental assistance and the resources for supportive services, and our job is really to help transition the families from relying on emergency systems to relying on preventative systems.
Recently there was a study done of 177 supportive housing residents, and it looked at how much public service they were using, was getting spent for them 2 years before they entered supportive housing, and then again 2 years after they entered supportive housing. And what was found was that on average, a yearly reduction of $2,400 in how much people were having to use services.
Because of its cost effectiveness, it's proven to be a very efficient model with federal partners and capital partners, people who invest in the actual physical building and development. It's the three-legged stool model. And when we, as lawmakers and appropriators, are spending money, we like to have other people picking up the tab with us.
See that clematis there that's starting up there?
Words cannot describe the elation when I saw the apartment itself and started to imagine being part of this community, this neighborhood. The woman who happens to be the landlady of the building, we're good friends. She has an extraordinarily gifted sense of humor.
We work with over 70 landlords in the Joliet area. People don't know that our clients are in a supportive housing program. Nobody knows the difference, and it's really nice. It just fits in well because they're in scattered sites.
In a supportive housing environment, they're really becoming part of the fabric of the place. I think it absolutely has something to do with having long-term investment in the neighborhood now. It's your home. So you do have a pride of taking care of it.
Hey, Patches, how are you?
She's come a long way from that first day she walked through the door.
Yeah, right here, rent and mortgage. So I always have to put that down. That's the very first thing I always pay.
She's been homeless most of her life, off and on. Where she is now, she's appreciative and she's proud because she's worked for what she's got in there right now. She's done it herself.
I'm coming on where I was when I first moved in here, though.
Just very proud of you.
Finally, I realized I had a mental illness. But at that time, like I said, it had me, but now I have it. I can take care of me now because of supportive housing. She listens to me when I talk to her.
Here at Haven House, which is the apartment complex, we do have individuals and families, and then we have 8 units that we lease out in the community. If people didn't have access to supportive housing such as ours, they would be in psychiatric facilities, they'd be hospitalized, there'd be more incarcerations, they'd be on the streets.
We can't expect consistent recovery programs to work when there's instability in housing.
In the next 3 to 5 years, we have made commitments to move thousands of people out of the nursing homes in which they live now and into the community setting. I think that we're very confident that the idea of doing patient-centered planning will assure that when they're in the community, they will have a much better life with more independence than you can in an institutional setting.
Prisons, nursing homes, and other state-operated facilities are not only extraordinarily more expensive than supportive housing, but they are not recovery models. They just assume that they are treatment centers and this person who we're taking care of is going to be like this the rest of their lives. And that is not a progressive model for this state.
89% of residents who get into a supportive housing environment stay housed. That's huge success.
As far as the legislators are concerned, I would urge them to make funds available for supportive housing.
I think that it's so easy to fund this program because it's such a small amount of money for what you get.
I really believe in supportive housing. I really do.
Supportive housing actually changed my life.
Cornerstone was a life-saving experience for me, continues to be a life-saving experience for me.
Overall, I'm just happy that we're stable.